It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I'm going to try and do what we do best in Ryanair. I'm going to try and get us all back on time, because I realise I'm the only thing between you guys and a Guinness reception, so that's a hard place to be. But I have a good story. I want to walk you through, I suppose, the history of Ryanair, take you up to us raising our first bond a couple of years ago, and indeed where we plan to go into the next couple of years. I hope I pressed the right buttons here on the presentation. Okay, so just a potted history of Ryanair. We're over 31 years old. Back in 1985, we started out with a single aircraft, with a 14-seater. We were full frills, flying from from Waterford in Ireland to Luton outside of London. We were doing so well with this model. We had celebrity guest lists, we had champagne, we had caviar, and everything went really well, everything that you don't expect today from Ryanair, except we lost all of our issued share capital by 1991. By 1992, we hired a new management team. We dispatched Michael O'Leary off to Texas to take a look at Southwest, and low fares found their way to Europe. The rest, I suppose, is history after that. By 1997, we launched ourselves onto the Irish Stock Exchange, the London Stock Exchange, and the Nasdaq, where we raised just under €600 million. We decided that we would spend that very wisely. So by 1999, we'd bought our first 737-800. We put our first big order in place in 2002 when we ordered 100 aircraft and 50 option aircraft. We really didn't know how that was going to go, but it's been a phenomenal success. By 2008, according to IATA, we were the world's largest scheduled carrier. We went into growth mode again in 2013 when we ordered 183 Boeing 737-800s. This is the end-of-line production from the Boeing company. So we decided at that stage, how are we going to fill these planes? So we undertook another change in the direction of the company, and we launched what we call the Always Getting Better program, where we looked at what our customers maybe didn't like in the airline, and we took some steps to address that. We also at that time realised we'd have to find a way of paying for these aircraft. With a very strong balance sheet and with strong ratios within the business, we decided the time was right to go off and get ourselves a rating. We were rated BBB+ by Fitch and S&P, and we issued our first bond in 2014. In 2014, we also put another big order in with Boeing for what we call the Boeing 737 Game Changers. These are the replacement aircraft for the 737-800, and they start to deliver in 2019. We ordered up to 200 of those aircraft for future growth in the airline. So where are we today? Well, today we're a 17 billion market cap company, and we would like to say, and we are, Europe's favourite airline. We have a proven and resilient business model. Last year, in the year to March 2016, we carried 106 million customers. We're number one when it comes to coverage around Europe. We have 84 bases dotted around Europe, lots of choice. We're number one when it comes to customer service. We've got a very simple customer service offering. We give you the lowest fare, we don't lose your bag, we don't cancel your flight, we get you there on time. And now as we move into our third year of the Always Getting Better program, our customers get to enjoy all the benefits that deliver. And what's the end result? Well, our load factors, that's the percentage of seats filled on the aircraft, are rising, and our forward bookings are strong. We've 330 aircraft on order, and that will enable us to grow from the 106 million customers that we had last year to 180 million customers per annum by March 2024. The one thing about the airline industry is that it's prone to shocks. Every year there's something, whether it's getting up in the morning and realising I have to deal with a volcano in my backyard, whether it's fuel at $150 a barrel, SARS, foot and mouth, or European recessions. This is what the airline industry has to deal with. But if you've got a strong balance sheet, if you've got strong fundamentals within the business, then you can do what we have done. You can grow your passenger numbers year on year, and you can have consistent margins in your business. Ryanair's average fare of €47 is significantly lower than the high-cost comparators. We're on average 220% cheaper than everybody else. You might ask, how do we do this? It's a relentless focus on costs within the Ryanair organisation. Our cost per passenger, excluding fuel, is €29. This compares very favourably to the competition. We're a country mile lower. We're raising money cheaper than everyone else. We're buying aircraft cheaper than everyone else. Our pilots and our cabin crew work harder than the competition out there. We negotiate good deals in the airports to which we operate. So this strategic advantage that we have cannot be underestimated. Our base network is a unique network. We have 84 bases dotted around Europe. These are the yellow boxes on the chart just behind me. What is a base? A base is where we overnight our cabin crew, our pilots, and our aircraft. So in effect, we get 84 opportunities every morning for that wonderful red-eye flight that everybody in this room, including myself, loves so much, but we get you home in the evening. And indeed, as our chief pilot says, we get all our crews home every evening as well. So whether they choose to sleep in their own bed or not is their own business, but we get them home. And we save on an awful lot of hotels and other issues and keep a lot of cost out of the business. We operate into 200 different airports, and I apologise, I say 32 countries. As of a couple of hours ago, we now are 33 countries, with Luxembourg being our latest destination. We've 1,800 routes when you join up all those dots on that chart behind me. We have about 2,000 flights a day, and we're growing rapidly. We enjoy strong market positions in all of the key markets around Europe. We're typically the number 1 or number 2 carrier on a route when we go onto it, and where we're number 3, we're trying harder. And despite having this strong position of strength, our ambitions are to double in size, so to grow from the 90 million customers that we had in the year to March 15 to 180 million customers by March 2024. We're already, by a country mile, the largest international scheduled carrier in the world. And indeed, last year we became the first carrier ever to carry in excess of 100 million international passengers in a given year. We're now into year 3 of our Always Getting Better program. The first 2 years were all about dealing with the issues that annoyed our customers, trying to refine the business model. But as we move into year 3 of the Always Getting Better program, apart from giving lower fares back to our customers, which lower fuel will enable, we're also looking more at the digital opportunities that we have. We will have a new Leisure Plus product, which is primarily based for families, but we've also enhanced our Business Plus product, which means that there's more flexibility built into the tickets for people like yourselves while travelling on business with us. The one-flick payment option, again, will make it easier for people on the go as well to purchase ancillaries. So you get to the airport and you realise the queue is long, you can buy that fast track through the airport, you can get your priority boarding seat as you run through on the mobile app. And I see an awful lot of people in here in suits who I think this will appeal to. We now have a corporate jet available for charter as well. I have a number of application forms at the door, so please take one on the way out. So what has Always Getting Better done for Ryanair? It's been a phenomenal success. Our load factor, which as I said earlier is the percentage of seats filled on the aircraft, have grown rapidly over the last 2 years. We've gone from an 83% load factor to a 93% load factor, and our bookings continue to remain strong. The competition are also finding it very difficult to compete with us, and these are just a few examples of where competitor airlines are pulling capacity, moving off routes when Ryanair comes on with our low costs. Our €29 per passenger is just something that they can't compete against. And while we have 15% market share in Europe, we're not competing in every airport, so they realise it's easier to go elsewhere. So if we look at domestic UK, for example, on the Edinburgh Stansted and the Glasgow Stansted routes, up to November 13, EasyJet pretty much had those routes to themselves. Yet you can see since we arrived in November 13, their load factors have dropped, their passenger numbers have dropped. At the same time, we're carrying 44,000 passengers on the London-Edinburgh route, and we're carrying 34,000 passengers on the Glasgow-London route. And it's not just on domestic UK. If we look at international flights, I've picked Cologne-London. I could have picked many others on that route. Again, since we came onto it, EasyJet's load factors have dropped quite significantly, and we're now carrying 36,000 passengers, which is just indicative of how the competition can't compete against us. The next step change in the evolution of Ryanair is going to be the Boeing MAX 200 aircraft. This is a quite phenomenal aircraft. We put an order in place back in September 2014 for 200 of these game changers. So what's so unique about them? What's so good about them? Well, they have 197 seats, the current fleet that we have of 189 seats. So we're effectively getting 8 extra seats in the cabin with no additional cost. You need 1 cabin crew member for every 50 passengers, so we've no extra cost going into the cabin, but we get the opportunity to have a 93% load factor across a higher number of passengers, which drives volume discounts, which gets our costs down. But it also, importantly, gives us an opportunity to generate more ancillary revenue opportunities. You saw the €47 per passenger that we have in average fare. We generate typically about another €14 to €15 per passenger in ancillaries. So having an opportunity to attract more of those passengers to our ancillary products is very interesting. The other thing that I suppose is extremely important is that these aircraft with the CFM LEAP engines are up to 16% more fuel efficient. And that again, we spend over $2 billion a year on fuel. That's a pretty important thing for us. So by 2024, we will have just under 550 aircraft in our fleet, and we'll have 180 million customers. Our balance sheet is one of the strongest in the industry. This is a BBB plus balance sheet. We have gross cash of just under 4.5 billion, but we have net cash of 350 million at the end of December 2015. Why, you might ask yourself, do we have such a high gross cash balance? Well, I showed you the slide earlier on about the number of shocks that hit the airline industry every year. It's extremely important that you've lots of cash to weather these storms when they come. We can walk into Boeing with this balance sheet and they look at it and they say, well, whatever happens, these guys are going to turn up with the money, so let's do a deal with them. This is why leasing companies want to lease us aircraft at very attractive lease rates. This is why the hedging companies are queuing up to give us unlimited hedge lines to hedge our fuel, our foreign currency and our interest rate exposure. And this is why we were rated BBB+. Well, we were actually rated A and notched down 1 because we were an airline. So this is why we can get very attractive rates on our bonds. Cash generation and liquidity, very, very strong in Ryanair, as you can see from these charts. We've got very strong cash balances, and despite having returned 4.4 billion to our shareholders over the last 8 years, we still remain cash positive in the business. And indeed, if we keep going the way we're going, we could be debt-free by 2023. When it comes to our financial policies, we're very conservative in what we do. In relation to liquidity management, we tend to run high cash balances, as I've just referred to. We don't do anything racy with them. It pains me, but we have them in deposits these days where we're getting relatively low returns on the funds. But we have them with highly secure financial institutions. When it comes to working capital, because we get your money up front, we're generally cash positive. And this is a reason why we don't need any standby lines of credit. This is why we're able to pay for all our pre-delivery payments out of cash, and we don't even have an overdraft facility. When it comes to hedging, we've got a lot of dollar exposures, but as a US or as a European airline, we don't generate any dollars in the business. So we typically hedge our dollar exposure on a kind of 12 to 18 month rolling basis. We also hedge our underlying commodity risk in relation to jet fuel. As I said earlier on, we spend about 2 billion a year on jet, so it's important for us that approximately 40% of our cost base is locked down. When it comes to capital expenditure, we would take a slightly longer view. We're typically hedged out anywhere between 12 to 24 months on that. And indeed, we would have locked away our 737-800 order at levels of about 131 against the euro dollar. So we're buying aircraft cheaper than we've ever done before. In relation to shareholder returns, we've got no set policy in relation to annualised dividends. We're a very capital-intensive business. We're in an industry that's prone to shocks, so it doesn't make sense to commit to an annual dividend. That said, to the extent that we're profitable, to the extent that we're generating a lot of cash flow in the business and covering our capex, then we do return funds to our shareholders and have returned on average about just over 4 billion in the last 8 years. So this is why we are rated BBB plus by Fitch. Until very recently, we were the most highly rated airline in the world. Now we're one of the most highly rated airlines in the world. The rating was important, and we launched an EMTN program here in Dublin. And that gives us access to the low-cost debt markets to fund our 330 remaining aircraft that we're going to purchase over the next few years. It also adds good diversity to the traditional forms of financing that we would have used. We would have used an awful lot of export credit through the Export-Import Bank of the United States. We've done a number of Japanese operating leases with call options, or JOLCOs, as we refer to them. Operating lease, I have about 41 aircraft on operating lease, although my biggest problem these days is that we're raising debt cheaper than the leasing companies, so it's expensive relative to other forms of finance. We've got a small amount of bank debt, and cash is probably a source of finance that I'm going to use quite highly in the coming year. So, as I said, the key reason for the bond was to finance the 380 aircraft, but we also like the unsecured nature of it. We have a 3 billion programme in place, and we keep in very good contact with our debt investors on an ongoing basis. Semi-annually, we run an equity roadshow with our full year and semi-annual roadshow, but we also tie a debt investor relations module onto that, and we have ongoing dialogue through various conferences like this and other conferences to keep our investors, both debt and equity alike, up to date on what's happening in the business. But not only did the bond market diversify our source of financing, when we came to the market in 2014, there were not many highly rated airlines out there, so we actually were seen as something quite unique, and we gave a lot of diversification to the bond investors as well, and helped them, I suppose, pad out their portfolio by getting a strong credit in a different sector in there. So we have launched 2 bonds. We had our first bond in June 2014. We thought that was pretty successful, where we raised €850 million at 1.875. However, I soon found out in March 2015 that I'd really overpaid when I raised 8-year money at 1.125. So just a few highlights from our debut bond. We originally went out on the morning of that bond looking for €500 million. We upsized it a couple of hours into about €850 million, and we're over 8 times subscribed. As I said, it won a number of accolades at the time, all of which were blown out of the water when we did our second bond. This year, however, we're probably going to concentrate more on cash, because even though we're raising money at 1%, and I was very interested to hear the panelists saying you can actually get paid to raise money, so if any DCM guys think they can give me that kind of a deal, please catch me after the presentation. But at the moment, the carry cost on 1% debt is just that little bit too expensive for us when we have so much cash in the business. So we're going to finance ourselves primarily out of cash for the next few months. So I talked about, our shareholder policy. As you can see, we've had a number of buybacks and special dividends over the last few years. To put that in context, we raised about €550 million in our IPO, so we've given back almost 8 times that to our shareholders in the past 8 years, while still maintaining an exceptionally strong BBB+ rated balance sheet. So just to sum up, we've got a proven, resilient business model in Ryanair, which has weathered many, many different shocks over the years. We've got the lowest costs of any airline in Europe, and the key benefit of that is that it allows us to have the lowest fares. We've got the lowest fares, then we get lots of passengers. If we get lots of passengers, that keeps our costs down because we get volume discounts. We spread our fixed costs over more people. We get more opportunities to have ancillary spend in the business. We're a highly rated organisation, which gives us access to the low-cost bond market. We have lots of new bases. We've got lots of new opportunities out there for the 330 new aircraft that are coming along, and that will see us grow to 180 million customers by March 2024. So just in short, our Always Getting Better programme and our financial prudence has paid for our shareholders, our bond holders, our people and our customers. I'm very happy to take any questions that people may have. I'm conscious that you all want to get up to the storehouse, so I'm sure this will be pretty short. Thank you.